Hollywood's golden age was not simply a place of creativity and glamour. It was a tightly controlled system where studios managed every detail of a star's public identity. Actors were marketed like products, with carefully crafted images designed to appeal to audiences and protect studio investments. Anything that threatened those images, scandal, illness, personal history, or private relationships, was treated as a liability. Studios employed publicists, lawyers, and powerful agents whose sole job was to suppress damaging information and redirect attention elsewhere. Careers were built or broken not just by talent, but by how well someone fit the narrative studios wanted to sell. In this environment, discretion was currency, and vulnerability could be exploited. Some actors were protected at all costs, while others, especially those without top-tier backing, were left exposed. This imbalance of power created a system where truth was often secondary to profitability, and personal histories could be weaponized when convenient. Rory Calhoun's rise from a troubled past. Rory Calhoun entered Hollywood with a background unlike many of his contemporaries. Born Francis Timothy McCown, his early life was shaped by instability, hardship, and encounters with the law during his youth. By the time he reached adulthood, those experiences were behind him, replaced by steady work, discipline, and a determination to rebuild himself. Hollywood agent Henry Wilson saw potential in Calhoun's rugged appearance and physical presence and helped launch his acting career. Through westerns and adventure films, Calhoun developed a reputation as a reliable leading man, particularly in physically demanding roles. His past was known quietly within industry circles, but it was not part of his public identity. Like many actors of the era, Calhoun relied on the unspoken agreement that what happened before stardom stayed buried. For a time, that agreement held, and his career moved forward without controversy. Rock Hudson and a carefully guarded image. At the same time, Rock Hudson was emerging as one of Hollywood's most valuable stars. Tall, handsome, and charismatic, he was marketed as the ideal, romantic leading man. Studios invested heavily in his image, pairing him with glamorous actresses and positioning him as a symbol of wholesome masculinity. Behind the scenes, however, Hudson lived a private life that studios feared would not align with public expectations of the era. In mid-century America, deviation from social norms, especially regarding sexuality, was considered career-ending for major stars. Whether through rumor or quiet awareness, industry power brokers understood that protecting Hudson's image was essential to preserving millions of dollars in future box office revenue. This created intense pressure to manage narratives aggressively. The goal was not simply to promote Hudson, but to ensure that no competing story distracted from or threatened the illusion carefully built around him. The role of gossip media in Hollywood. Hollywood's control over image extended into its complicated relationship with gossip publications. Magazines like Confidential thrived on exposing secrets, often blurring the line between journalism and exploitation. Studios publicly condemned these outlets while privately negotiating with them. Information could be traded, redirected, or leaked strategically to satisfy public curiosity without damaging top assets. Gossip columns were powerful because they shaped perception, and once a story was printed, it became part of an actor's identity, whether true, exaggerated, or incomplete. This ecosystem rewarded sensationalism and punished vulnerability. For actors without strong studio protection, exposure could permanently alter career trajectories. Gossip media did not create Hollywood's problems, but it amplified them, functioning as a pressure valve for secrets that studios needed released elsewhere to maintain balance. In that environment, one actor's past could become another actor's shield. Why Rory Calhoun became vulnerable. Rory Calhoun occupied a precarious position within this system. He was successful, recognizable, and respected, but he was not indispensable to any single studio's long-term strategy. His work largely consisted of westerns and television roles, rather than prestige projects that demanded heavy protection. More importantly, His past contained documented legal trouble from his youth, events that were real, verifiable, and easy to sensationalize. Unlike rumors or private behavior, these facts required no speculation. When gossip outlets looked for material that could attract readers without provoking legal retaliation from powerful studios, Calhoun's story was available. He was not accused of new wrongdoing, but his earlier life was reframed in a way that overshadowed his professional growth. In an industry that valued perception over redemption, this made him an expendable figure, regardless of how far he had come since those early mistakes. The exposure that changed everything. When Confidential magazine published details of Rory Calhoun's youthful criminal history in the mid-1950s, the impact was immediate. The article presented his past as a shocking revelation rather than a chapter long since closed. Public reaction was mixed, but within Hollywood, the consequences were clearer. Casting directors became cautious. Studios hesitated to position him as a romantic or heroic lead. While Calhoun continued working steadily, his upward momentum slowed dramatically. The roles he received shifted toward supporting parts or lower-profile projects. Importantly, nothing about his present conduct justified this shift. It was perception alone that altered his standing. At the same time, attention that might have turned toward other stars quietly dissipated. The industry had redirected scrutiny, allowing more protected figures to continue their careers uninterrupted. Calhoun absorbed the damage without public complaint, carrying the weight privately. Rock Hudson's career moves forward. As Rory Calhoun's reputation became complicated by revived history, Rock Hudson's career entered its most successful phase. He starred in major studio films, romantic comedies, and prestige dramas that cemented his status as a Hollywood icon. Public narratives around Hudson remained clean, consistent, and carefully curated. There were no disruptive scandals, no damaging headlines, and no widespread scrutiny of his personal life. From the studio perspective, the system worked exactly as intended. One story absorbed attention while another remained untouched. This was not presented publicly as a trade or decision, but the timing and outcomes illustrate how Hollywood prioritized assets. Hudson benefited from an environment designed to protect him, while Calhoun bore the cost of exposure. The contrast between their trajectories highlights the unequal distribution of power within the studio era and the human consequences of image management. The long-term cost to Rory Calhoun. Despite the setback, Rory Calhoun did not disappear. He adapted, taking on television roles, genre films, and later cult classics that introduced him to new audiences. His work in projects like Motel Hell and Angel demonstrated range, humor, and self-awareness, proving that his talent remained intact. However, the chance to reclaim top-tier leading man status never fully returned. His career became defined by resilience rather than ascent. Calhoun rarely spoke publicly about resentment or betrayal, choosing instead to work consistently and move forward. That quiet endurance may be one reason his story resonates today. He represents the many actors whose careers were shaped less by performance and more by forces beyond their control. His experience reminds us that success in Hollywood often depends not only on ability, but on how expendable someone is when narratives need redirecting. What this story reveals about Hollywood. The story of Rory Calhoun and Rock Hudson is not about villains and victims in simple terms. It is about a system designed to protect profit over people. Studios operated under social norms and economic pressures that encouraged secrecy, manipulation, and sacrifice. Personal truth was negotiable, and loyalty flowed upward toward the most valuable stars. Those lower in the hierarchy absorbed risk, so others could remain unscathed. While modern Hollywood has changed in many ways, this history explains why transparency was so rare and why so many careers carried hidden costs. Rory Calhoun's experience offers insight into how reputations were shaped, redirected, and sometimes damaged to maintain balance. It also reminds us that redemption and growth were rarely part of the public conversation, even when they defined a person's actual life. Legacy beyond the scandal. Rory Calhoun's legacy cannot be reduced to a single article or moment of exposure. He built a career spanning decades, transitioning from Western hero to cult film favorite with authenticity and grit. His life reflects transformation, resilience, and adaptability in an unforgiving industry. While history suggests his past was used strategically during a moment of industry pressure, his response was not bitterness, but perseverance. Rock Hudson's story, revealed much later, added complexity and humanity to both men's narratives. Together, their intertwined histories expose the realities of an era where truth waited decades to surface. In retrospect, Rory Calhoun was not simply sacrificed, he endured. And in doing so, he left behind a career defined not by scandal, but by survival, reinvention, and a lasting presence on screen that continues to be rediscovered.